I have had a Tortured Poets Department breakthrough. Now that I've had 3 weeks to go back and listen to the album and really ruminate on it, to draw parallels within the album and within other albums and within things that Taylor Swift has said in interviews and poems and, documentaries, I have realized that what I thought was the original thesis of the album is incorrect. I originally thought that the thesis of the Tortured Poets Department was ambiguity. That if Taylor Swift could not have privacy in her music, in her life, in her work, that she was going to demand ambiguity, that she was going to create and craft stories and sounds that were hard to engage with. And she was successful at that. But now, having 3 weeks to go back and look at everything, I realized that the thesis and the driving thought behind the Tortured Poets Department is duality. In the thinking it was ambiguity, I thought that it was about maintaining control of a story through that ambiguity. But it's really about the complexity of and in duality, both as it pertains to the idea of two sides of the same coin, and also the idea of two things can exist at once. But first, let's talk about the main presence of twos with this album. From the start, from her announcing of the release of this album, she has emphasized this symbol that I've been sitting on this album for 2 years, and then we ended up finding out that it was a double album, right? We have the Tortured Poets Department and the anthology. But I think if we're trying to understand this album through the lens of duality, we need to look at them, the Tortured Poets Department and the anthology, as one album, as just the Tortured Poets Department. From there, we can understand that double album is duality in and of itself. Both represents that she was acknowledging in some way, shape, or form, whether it was out of spite or fan service, whatever, that the Swiftie fan base was very familiar with the term double album. From the 1989 fiasco to the whole thing with Reputation, Taylor's Version, and Karma, it was a mode through which she could convey, that a lot of music was coming. But what's more than that, I think if we look at it as one album, the double album phrase can prepare us to understand there's more to the album than meets the eye, that there is the presence of this duality, that there is so much more to understand about it than just one side of the story. Okay, so all of that said, I'm gonna try and keep my focus as we get into this. So I thought it was ambiguity, but it's really duality. And we get that from the start. I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. Sets that up from the bat. Because the huge part of Fortnite that represents duality is, I love you, it's ruining my life. We have from Taylor Swift before how love is healing, right? We have freaking Daylight, which is supposed to be like, I thought love was supposed to be burning red and something that tears people apart, but really it's golden and it's healing and it's a place where it can be safe and sacred. And now where I love you, it's ruining my life. I love you, it's drawing me apart. I love you, I hate you, and I'm gonna get you back. You loved me, you gave me life. My boy breaks his favorite toys. You loved me, you hurt me. Literally, insert song here, So Long London is probably the first one that comes to mind. Or some of the other ideas of duality in Fortnite, in addition to the I love you, it's ruining my life, is we were going to be forever, and now we're neighbors in passing. I think it's Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, where is it enough to just be in my orbit, right? Like, once it wasn't enough to just see me, but now it is. A line in My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys also really encapsulates an idea that I love, that I'm crying, the rivulets descend my plastic smile, but I wasn't always crying. I wasn't always sad. There was one time when, you should have seen him when he first got me, right? There was a time when everything was beautiful and happy. And then the last 4 lines, told me I'm better off, but I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I might be better off without you, but I'm also not better off without you. Everything sucks and I'm in pain. That's duality. That's what Taylor Swift is capturing and delivering to us through the double album that is the Tortured Poets Department. I mentioned that there are two main ideas of duality in this, right? There's the two sides of the same coin, and there's the two things can exist at once. I think there's also a secret third thing in this album, and that is you can feel it all, but you can't have it all. This is an idea, a notion that's very prevalent in songs like Fortnite, Clara Bow, of course, Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus, the prophecy, that's like the whole point of the prophecy. And it just, that I think is the more tragic side of this duality, that you can have all this money, but you cannot have a soulmate. That you could be content to sit and watch wild horses, but is that really going to be fulfilling? Like it says in Chloe or Sam or Sophia or Marcus. In Clara Bow, you can feel it all, but you can't have it all. You can have all the fame and the glory, but you could have nothing internally. Fortnite, we can be something that was going to last forever, and now we run into each other at the mailbox. We were something that was so, so special, and now it's like boring as heck, mundane, ordinary. That I think also is a truth to just the fact that the Torture Poets department exists. That I can give you 31 tracks. I can give you everything I've got, but you're still gonna understand. I can go through these horrible things and make something beautiful out of them, but it's still gonna hurt me back. On a flipped narrative, I can still show up to all your shows, know all the lyrics to your songs, give you time and money and attention, and I'm still gonna have some removal from you. And that's a healthy boundary that as a speaker, as an international superstar, you can feel it all, but you can't have it all. There are some things that need to remain private. There's so much more of an active war between Taylor Swift and the fandom and fame in this album than there ever has been. Of course, there are a couple songs, and usually it's like Nothing New or The Lucky One, Mad Woman even, but it's never such a prevalent theme. And it, I think, just all comes back to the duality of I'm so angry at everything that I have, but everything I have is everything I've ever wanted. That's freaking duality right there. The line that I picked to represent duality in the Torture Poets department is 2 graves, 1 gun. That comes from So Long London, and I think diegetically to that song, it is just absolutely devastating. And even in those 4 words in that phrase, we can derive 2 key meanings. I think the first one is a little bit more obvious, that 2 people were killed in the same relationship. Both people in the relationship died of the same cause. But I think the more compelling interpretation of this is that the relationships are the bodies going in each grave. That 2 separate relationships have the same cause of death. Whether that cause of death is miscommunication between the speaker and their significant other, or the demons that one person has, or the loss of love between the 2 people. Whatever it is, both relationships died in the same way. And I think that that is the key to one of the most powerful themes of the Torture Poets department. She went through 2 very disparate situations that left her feeling the same way. That there are 2 different people and 2 different experiences, but the takeaway is the same. The kicker about this one is that I think she does this within individual songs. Like usually, like her whole thing is that she talks about people in her songs, right? But usually it's one person, one song, done. There might be a few different people that stretch over an album, but this time around, I think that she has taken one song and put 2 different people, 2 of those experiences into the same song, because the takeaway from each of those experiences equals the same feeling, the same idea. I'm still going through trying to nail down textual evidence to support my claim, because I don't want to be like, trust me on this, right? That's a huge thing to suggest. But I think this is the first time that she has used one song to talk about 2 different experiences that ended her in the same place, that put her in the same place, which is such a unique perspective and a unique way to tell a story. And it's something that I don't think I've ever experienced in any form. No movie, no book, no music, obviously. And it's something that is really refreshing, that you can end up with these complex warring emotions from two different relationships that, yes, you might have gone through different things and you might have different attachments and different memories, but if something ends in a similar way, if something lets you down so horribly, you might be feeling the same way. And there's one song that I think really encapsulates this type of duality, that two things can exist at the same time. Ironically, this is a song that I think is about one singular person and doesn't take from multiple experiences and put them into one song. But I think it best encapsulates two things can exist at once. It best encapsulates the duality of complex feelings and not knowing how to react in something that seems so logical and seems so clear, and not knowing what to do with something that you can't help feeling. And that song is Guilty as Sin. What's more, Am I Allowed to Cry was one line that was on the forefront of promotion for this album, which I think is I love that line. It's got such a desperate tenderness to it. Am I allowed to cry? Am I allowed to feel such strong emotions about something that isn't mine? Am I allowed to love and mourn for someone who doesn't belong to me, whether they ever had or ever will? Am I allowed to cry? It's the perfect line for just reflection of what the heck? What am I supposed to do with myself? What am I supposed to do with all this that I have for this person? Another thing, guilty as sin, not guilty as sin. Like, to begin with, we are unsure. Having a name for the duality, while you can say and accept about yourself that whether I'm gonna flip you off or pull you into a closet or become your wife or mess up your bike, there's still gonna be confusion and tension. Even if you can name it as duality, even if you can name it as complex feelings, as jealousy or resentment or loathing or longing, it doesn't resolve all the tension. And so calling it guilty as sin, with the question mark, lets us into that unsurety and allows us to be okay with not being okay with the confusion. And I think that it's not only brilliant from a storytelling perspective, but it's brilliant from a warring woman perspective of like am I allowed to cry? Am I guilty? I don't even know. I don't know if this makes me guilty or not. I don't know how to deal with this, but I know that I feel it so strongly. And even though I can name it, I'm not gonna stop feeling it. Even though it's done and I'm singing about it in the past tense, I'm still feeling it. I'm still afflicted and affected by it. Does that make me guilty? I don't know. And I love it. I love the uncertainty. It's just sublime. So some other lines that encapsulate the duality and encapsulate the struggle. Tonight he's a paradox. He's both good and bad. Two things can exist at the same time. And that's conflicting. But I have a word for it. I can call it a paradox, but I still don't have an answer. Am I bad or mad or wise? Am I bad for feeling this way? Am I crazy for feeling this way? Am I smart for being able to recognize that I feel both ways? So many unanswered questions. I keep recalling things we never did. How can you recall something that's never happened? That's paradoxical. Without ever touching his skin, how can I be guilty of sin? You've never done the thing, but somehow you still feel guilty anyway. Someone told me there's no such thing as bad thoughts, only your actions talk. If I'm thinking about it, that means I'm guilty, but I haven't done anything, so am I guilty? Tension. What if the way you hold me is actually what's holy? That if all of these other things that people believe in are just as profound and powerful as the way that you and I love each other, which I love. That gives me chills. But that's a huge question too. Like, what if I choose to put my faith in this thing? Is that horrible? Does that mean that God and I are at odds? I don't know. Tension. If long-suffering propriety is what they want from me, they don't know how you've haunted me so stunningly. Like, maybe if they understood the way that I feel, I would be less guilty. But I think more importantly, you've haunted me so stunningly. Haunted. She literally has a song called Haunted, and it's like the most crazy gothic metal song that Taylor Swift has, that I'm lost and I'm languishing over your loss, but I'm marveling at it. I'm in awe. There's a reverence that comes over me at the way that you've just ruined my life. Tension! I think if this has taught me anything, it's that as much as I love literary ambiguity, I love duality. That I think it might be the stronger device than ambiguity. Because ambiguity is almost like a cop-out, being like, oh, who can say? There's no answer. I don't know. It depends, right? It's got so much of an open door that it's almost like endless. But duality, it gives you a place. It gives you a starting place. It gives you, directions. Do I go this way? Do I go that way? You want to go both ways. Duality inherently tells us we can go both ways. That we can have two experiences with two different people, but it can be the same lesson learned. That is the two sides of the same coin. That we can feel horrible and guilty and angry, but feel so happy and fulfilled. And that is having two things at the same time. Two things can coexist. And there's duality. It's like a infinite monkeys, but it's infinite branches. It will just keep going on. You pick this fork in the road, and then you have another, and then you have one from there, and then it just keeps going. There's infinite choices. Ambiguity says you can keep going forever and ever, but duality says you must think about this seriously. You must take into account possibility. You must make decisions. Ambiguity takes away responsibility. Duality says you have to be responsible for something. You get to choose that something, but there will always be consequences for the way that you are continuing on. That you can stay back and languish, you can choose to not go further, but you're never gonna feel the way that you want to feel. And Taylor Swift wants to feel. It's why she spent her whole life trying to put it into words. She wants us to be with her as we feel. Every speaker, every artist, every painter, every musician wants to feel, and they put their art out there so that we can feel alongside with them. This album does a great job of saying sometimes it's more harmful than helpful to have people feel with you, but it's so much better to feel with people than it is to feel alone. I think duality creates ambiguity also. That in the answerlessness of ambiguity, you don't have any conclusions, you don't have any meaning. But if you have duality, you can say, I could be inferring this, but I could also be inferring this. And that drives us towards meaning. Ambiguity says there's probably meaning out there, but duality driving us to ambiguity drives us to search for meaning. And now I'm sitting here looking at all my notes, and it comes back to, I love you, it's ruining my life. I love this album, it's ruining my life. I'm just gonna keep going down rabbit holes. I'm just gonna keep searching for meaning in things that very intentionally have meaning. And it's never gonna be enough. Thanks for coming back. This one so far was the most enticing one to make. I did get off track. I've been saying that I'm gonna do lyric analyses, but this was more pressing. This is crazy. It's like in the gym, like taking notes and listening and texting my friend Rachel and being like, what do you think? Because I felt like I cracked it. I felt like I understood it. And I think that having come to some of these conclusions is going to be more informative moving forward with my analyses. If you came back, thank you. If you're new, welcome. We're all new here. So if you see any more instances of duality or have any input, anything to add on anything that I said, comment, let me know, do the subscribing. This has been super fun so far, and I'm just gonna keep bringing it. I hate this ending part's so awkward. I'll see you next time.